I conducted an interview with one of Joe's general education teachers. Joe has a diagnosis of a severe emotional disability with other health impairments, and is the same student from the student observation that I completed. Joe demonstrates many challenging behaviors both in the general education classroom and within the center classroom. I talked with Joe's teacher, we'll call her Miss Hill, about Joe and the various behaviors that he exhibits while in class. Miss Hill mentioned that some of the most prominent behavior that she sees from Joe is distracting off-task behavior. She mentioned that Joe does not redirect well and often argues with the direction given or follows it with a rude comment. When asked about Joe's distracting behavior, Miss Hill talked about pencil tapping on his desk and water bottle, squirting his water bottle, misusing his chair, and talking while she is teaching. She also mentioned that Joe destroys property, for example, tearing apart his binder and subject notebooks, and that he constantly has foreign objects in his mouth, like paper, erasers, and parts of his pencil. Ms. Hill mentioned that she is also worried about Joe's increase in misusing the bathroom and elopement from the classroom. Triggering antecedents are often referred to as the straw that broke the camel's back. When questioned about what seems to trigger Joe's problem behaviors, Ms. Hill mentioned independent work time, having to do something that he doesn't want to do, and having to just sit and listen to her teach. If asked if she was ever notified about possible setting events that, Otten and Tuttle put it, exaggerate the likelihood that the problem behaviors will occur, she said, not often. She mentioned that sometimes Joe comes into class loud and distracting right off the bat, seemingly without a trigger. Ms. Hill also mentioned that there are some days when Joe comes in just like any other student. I asked Ms. Hill what some strategies were that had been implemented in regard to Joe's behavior. She mentioned that she tries to allow Joe to take breaks as he needs them, and that she tries her best to ignore some of the smaller behavior that Joe demonstrates. She said that she will give an initial direction to stop a specific behavior, but then she walks away. Ms. Hill also indicated that she likes to try to front-load consequences. When I asked her to clarify, Ms. Hill stated that she likes to pre-teach Joe, giving him the success criteria and following consequences up front. Ms. Hill did mention that there are some strategies that do not seem to work as designed. She mentioned that Joe doesn't always ask for breaks appropriately, sometimes demanding them or leaving the room without having asked for a break. Ms. Hill said that once a problem behavior has started, Joe often refuses to leave when directed to go take a break. She noted that she would like to keep this strategy in place and continue to work on it, as it is something that gives Joe responsibility in advocating for himself. She also said that ignoring his behaviors doesn't seem to work all that well, and that is sometimes hard to follow through with, because they are usually quite distracting to his peers. Ms. Hill expressed that when he is ignored, Joe has the tendency to amp up his behavior, which tends to successfully gain her attention because she needs to call the center staff to come and remove him from the classroom. I asked Ms. Hill if there were some strategies that she uses to promote solid behavior from the entire class. Ms. Hill articulated that consistency is key. She said she likes to point out the positives and recognize students for showing desired behavior. She also mentioned her belief in the importance of choice. She wants to give the students choices to empower them to make the decisions on their own, but make sure that the choices she gives are ones that she can live with. I questioned if Ms. Hill had reinforcers in place to encourage positive behaviors. Ms. Hill talked about how she uses the ticket system as a part of the PBIS program at school. The tickets are given on an individual basis, acting as a gotcha when teachers catch students demonstrating desired behaviors. She further mentioned that she has a marble jar as well. The marble jar is something that all students work together to fill in order to receive a community reward over a longer period of time. When asked if these two reward systems seem to work to motivate Joe, Ms. Hill said, "Not really." She said that Joe needs more of an immediate reinforcement for his good behavior. What motivates Joe to be on task and show expected behavior? Ms. Hill mentioned that he has an opportunity to earn iPad time in the center-based classroom based on his successful time in class. And that seems to sort of motivate him. However, even that sometimes doesn't motivate Joe in the classroom. I mentioned that I believed Joe had a behavior intervention plan in place and asked if she knew of Joe's involvement in it. Ms. Hill said that she wasn't sure, but that she knew Joe had a voice in developing the iPad incentive plan. Otten and Tuttle call maintaining consequences the payoff, or what the student gets out of it. Ms. Hill was questioned about some of the factors that could be contributing to the maintained occurrence of Joe's problem behaviors. She said that she would guess that a lot of it is the attention that Joe gets from adults and peers. When I asked if she thought that it could also be a way that Joe was attempting to escape or avoid his work, she was in agreement. Ms. Hill was unsure as to the level of involvement that Joe's parents have. She said that his mom usually signs up and attends parent-teacher conferences. I questioned the SED social worker, who is in continual communication with his parents, and she said that Joe's parents have limited involvement, though they do stay in touch with her, mostly over email and phone calls. She said they openly talk about Joe's behavioral challenges and that they differ from each other in terms of intervention for the behavior. Upon completion of this interview, there were many things that I found were essential to learn from and to implement in my future classroom. The importance of communication was a shadow that covered a good portion of the interview. Upholding two-way communication will be a key component in the maintenance of my classroom. I want to set up general education teachers for success by keeping them in the loop on different factors that could impact a student's behavior and in turn their classroom. Collaboration is also going to be an essential ingredient to the success of the students in my classroom. It is vital that the general education teachers and I are on the same page and are aware of the incentives and consequences that are in place to ensure the greatest possible success for the students. We are going to have to work together to create more individualized incentives for students with challenging behaviors. Overall, this interview provided a window into the future challenges that I may face as a special education teacher.